Hello everyone, my name is Mel and you're watching Growing Together. Today's video is going to be a little bit of discussion around racism, around the construct of race within our society, around white privilege, and around talking with our children and teaching our children about racism and white privilege within our society. I did a video a couple of weeks ago over on my booktube channel that I will link below about my thoughts around why we need to educate ourselves around racism. And in that video I also talked about the fact that I was planning during the month of June on joining in on the Blackout Buddy Read, which is a buddy read hosted by Shae from the channel Books with Shae. And what Shae's done is she has picked two books around racism within America. So the first one is White Fragility, and it's actually written by a white author. And the second one is White Rage, which is written by a black author. And the idea behind this is to start a dialogue and get everyone thinking about racism, and the systemic racism that exists within our society. I will link my video where I discuss that in more detail below and in the eye, and I will also link Shae's video where she introduces the Blackout Buddy Read in the description and in the eye. So if you want to join in on that, find out more, educate yourself more, which I highly recommend that you do, then I suggest you go and watch one or both of those videos as well. So what I did in my video about why we need to educate ourselves about racism was I read out a acknowledgement of country, because I am currently sitting in a house that is built on Australian Aboriginal land, and I feel that I can't have a conversation about race and racism in society without acknowledging that fact and acknowledging country. So I'm going to read that out here now as well. Within Australia, there are protocols around talking about country when you are in a gathering. If you are an Indigenous Australian, then you may do a welcome to country because you are an Indigenous Australian, so you can welcome people to your country. If you are a non-Indigenous Australian, then you need to do an acknowledgement of country, which means that you acknowledge the First Nations people, acknowledge the first custodians of the land. So I have gone and found a acknowledgement of country that is suggested by the University of Tasmania. So I'll read that out now. Today we are meeting on Lutruwita, Tasmania, Aboriginal land, sea and waterways. I acknowledge with deep respect the traditional owners of this land, the Muwinina people, which we meet today. The Muwinina people belong to the oldest continuing culture in the world. They cared and protected country for thousands of years. They knew this land. They lived on the land and they died on these lands. I honour them. For the Muwinina people, the area around Nipulana, Hobart, was their country, and they called Mount Wellington Kunanyi. I acknowledge that it is a privilege to stand on country and walk in the footsteps of those before us. Beneath the mountain, among the gums and waterways that continue to run through the veins of the Tasmanian Aboriginal community, I pay my respects to elders past and present, and to the many Aboriginal people that did not make elder status, and to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community that continue to care for our country. I recognise a history of truth which acknowledges the impacts of invasion and colonisation upon Aboriginal people, resulting in the genocide and forcible removal from their lands. Our island is deeply unique, with spectacular landscapes, with our cities and towns surrounded by bushland, wilderness, mountain ranges and beaches. I stand for a future that profoundly respects and acknowledges Aboriginal perspectives, culture, language and history, and a continued effort to fight for Aboriginal justice and rights, paving the way for a strong future. And it is that last section that I really want to talk about today, because this channel is all about raising kids and child development, and I really want to talk about the importance of discussing race and racism with our children. So part of the reason why I feel compelled to have this conversation with you guys today is because of the situation in the United States at the moment, but also that it is something that is still a part of our Australian political and social situation, and it is something that it is very easy to say, well, it's not like it is in the States, and that is completely untrue. So I think that it's really important that we in Australia also help ourselves and our children to be educated around race and racism. As I mentioned, I have been doing the Blackout Buddy Read, and the book that I'm currently reading is White Fragility, written by, let me just look up, Robin DiAngelo. Now, as I said, this book is written by a white woman. She is an anthropologist and sociologist, and she is also a person that travels around various different businesses and communities and helps to educate around race and racism. So she is writing from a white woman's perspective, and she is writing about white fragility and racism as a construct within American society. And I was in the middle of reading this book, and quite a few things struck me, and I feel that I need to discuss that here on this parenting channel as well as over on my booktube channel. And the reason for that is because one of the things that really struck me was that Robin DiAngelo is talking about the idea that, first of all, to say, I have said this, and I'm sure that many people have said this, and we've heard people say this, but to say that I am not racist because I don't be mean to black people, or that I don't see race, I don't think it's important to me, I don't care what someone looks like, I just see people. You might genuinely think that that's true, but the ability to say that is actually part of white privilege, because the notion that we don't have to think about race, that we don't have to think about what our skin colour and racial heritage means and how it impacts our daily life, is a privilege. And that really struck me, because I think that it is easy to say, well, I'm a nice person, so therefore I am not racist because I don't actively go out of my way to say horrible racist slurs or tell horrible racist jokes, so therefore I'm not racist, is a way out of having this conversation and a way out of acknowledging our white privilege. We need to acknowledge that race and racism is part of our society, and that to say that we don't exist in a racial environment because we don't think about race isn't acknowledging the very real way that race is something that a person of colour, what they experience on a daily basis as a result of their race, of the colour of their skin, of their heritage. And I think this is really important when it comes to raising children and teaching children, because the very point of parents and teachers and educators is that we are moulding new minds. We are helping children to become the people that they're going to become. And so if we ignore the hard topic and we ignore racism and we say that if we don't talk about it then we aren't racist, we are not developing people who are aware of systemic racism and that are thinking about how they can do things to, at the very least, educate themselves and hopefully at the most to change things about the world in which we live and the way that they live within the society that they live in. So when preparing to create this video, I actually watched a talk given at a conference in the United States by a child psychologist, Dr Yamalis Diaz, and in this paper she talks about the importance of talking to children about race and racism and how to do it and why we should do it, and like I said, gives a lot of tips on different ways that we can approach doing this. I urge you all to go and watch or listen to that video. I will link it again, like I said, in the eye and in the description below. I'm not going to reiterate everything that she has said So I do urge that you go and watch it, and I think probably the most important part of the video is the tips and the helpful hints and suggestions as to how we actually have these conversations with our children, because it is a really, really difficult topic. It's a really hard thing to know how to talk about that, especially, and I say this as a white person who is very much aware that she is white and therefore has white privilege. As a white person who likes to think of myself as reasonably awake in the world and reasonably progressive in my thinking, it's a really hard topic to open and to discuss. But I think that it's really important that we do, because if we don't, we are propping up those structures by not addressing what's happening, by not addressing the situation for our children around the world. And I think that it's really important that we do have that conversation. Like I said, she goes into a lot of different suggestions on how we have that conversation. I do not feel like I have the answers for that myself, but I am very grateful for having watched this video. I think that it was really important for my own learning and my own thought processes. And one of the things that I found incredibly important to be reminded of is that we don't exist in a vacuum. We don't parent in a vacuum. We don't teach in a vacuum. Ignoring the conversation, not only are we complicit in the continuation of systemic racism, but we are not acknowledging something that is still going to be a part of our children's lives. Whether they are Caucasian, whether they are Latinx, whether they are Aboriginal Australian, whatever background and heritage you have and your family has and your children have, we all need to be having the conversation, because even if as a parent we don't address it, or as a teacher we don't address it, they still see it. They see racism happening. They see it happening in the world around them. They see it in TV, they see it in magazines, they see it online, they see it in the streets, they see it at the shopping centre, they see it all of the time. They see it around them. So it is something that we need to talk about. We need to educate. It's okay for us to say, well, I'm trying to educate myself around this as well. I'm trying to learn more about this as well. I'm trying to figure this out myself. It's okay to have those conversations with our children and acknowledge our own unawareness, our own situation, our own lack of education, our own attempts to be educated, because that shows children that they don't have to have the answer, and that it shows children that it's okay to question and it's okay to wonder about these things, and that it's okay to bring the questions to our parents, to our teachers, to our educators, because that is how we learn. Just like with any other learning opportunity, if you don't open yourself up to having those learning opportunities, to take advantage of those learning opportunities, whether it be for maths or discussions around racism, we are missing out an opportunity to help our children grow and learn and develop. As important as it is to do it when it comes to maths or science, it's important to do it when it comes to racism and the structures within our society. I think that these books that I've mentioned, White Fragility, White Rage, are incredibly important for your learning. They're not something that you would read to children, but for your learning and for you to think about how to broach those conversations with children and why to have those conversations with children. So if you would like to join me in the body read, that would be amazing. Please comment below and let me know if you are planning on doing so. I'd love to talk to you about that. Please comment below if you have any thoughts or comments about anything that I've said in this video. I would really love to discuss all of these topics with you. They are very confronting and difficult but important, and I really would love to be as helpful as I can be and as thoughtful as I can be, so please comment below. Also, if there was anything in this video that you found distressing or that you thought was not well said or that I was being problematic, please comment below and let me know. I really am trying to learn, so maybe I'm not aware of it. If you are willing and able to do so, that would be amazing. And yeah, that is the end of this video for today. I just thought that it was important having this conversation with you guys, and to encourage you to go and look at the information that I've included in the description, and also to encourage you to start having those conversations with your children and to start thinking about how to educate your children around these topics. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you found this video helpful and interesting and useful in any way. I will see you guys all next time. Thanks.